Actually, that would have been Meredith's line.
Why do I have?
You just,
that was for the iPhone. That's the auxiliary input. Whoa.
oh,
Whoa.
look at you.
Hold
She's
your
a
ears.
fembot. Fuck, she's a fembot.
She is.
I'm a little bitch. Get it right.
You robo bitch.
He's a Dr. Pepper.
Do you
He's a pepper.
do you want to get a drink?
Do I want to get a drink?
Are you thirsty? Do you want to get a drink now?
You want to get a drink?
Yeah,
Did you see another spotter today? You need another drink.
oh yeah.
Oh, I
that's
needed a drink yesterday.
Oh my God.
Driving up BW Parkway, and all I see is legs in front of my house. Holy shit!
Welcome to my world.
God damn!
This joke is real, man.
God, trying to
No!
drive the car.
Fuck your mother! Yeah. I know all about it.
Oh God! And of course I'm like, now you feel everything all over you.
Yeah, everything.
You get the
is
creepy
all-
crawls.
Yeah.
Ah!
You do.
And I hit myself. And I go, there's blood. What the hell? It bit me.
Thanks for getting that out of your system now. You got any more?
Rattle.
Stay classy, princess.
All the way to Christmas.
Damn right.
From a dirty deep. All right, are we ready?
This
We're
thing's
doing this.
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with the position of my windscreen now.
You're obsessed.
Shut it. Just shut it. Okay, so you actually think that the white headphones look better than these?
I think they look good on you. And the Marshalls, and you like the tone better.
I do like the tone better. It's more gooder.
Okay.
I mean, the test cams are fine. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean they're not yeah.
Look better.
What do you think?
I just wish I hadn't gotten a white one and a black one. I should have gotten two black.
The black
Because
one's
once you
not
go
working.
black,
You can't get credit.
Rob, send your complaint emails to attention Rob.
Anything less than a 5 is not accepted. By the way, Michelle doesn't care for that joke.
I can't imagine why that would be. Where's the extender? There they are. There's my extender. Let's see if I can get it in the right hole this time. Well, I had it in the wrong hole the last time.
Oh, I hate it when that happens.
I do. Makes me sad. Okay. Oh my God, that's awesome. Wow. That's man, it's hot.
Man, you really look like a white guy now.
You're pretty.
Which is kind of funny because a lot of people says to me, "Moby,
Where's the Quan, people?
damn, Leroy,
Can you bet-
look all white."
Damn white people.
Can you back down on the gain in my headphones now? A little bit, a little bit, a little bit.
All right, Robert De Niro, that's about enough out of you.
Hey, a little bit. All right, that's all right. I can live with that. That's good. I was like blowing my brains out before. It's the difference
Difference
in
about the pea shooter. Don't do it. Don't do it.
what, your dwarf penis?
Oh, my dwarf pea. Hey, I don't have it. You know what? That's kind of like a guy, the right-handed guy. They call him lefty. That's how that is, right?
Is that what that is?
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, fair enough. Well, this is starting off well. Okay.
What happened?
What happened was, oh, I got an extra thing.
Do daddy.
Extra.
Okay.
So much for organization.
Well, you're gonna put it back the way you want to, because you get all OCD.
I do. And you know what? You have never talked to me about OCD. You have never.
I can. Welcome to my hypocritical little world.
I don't know. We didn't play it because all they put in words. It's very nicely kept.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And who set it up?
Yeah, you did.
I did.
You messed with my boxes.
With Jackie's help, of course. She had to hit me.
She had you.
Yeah, man.
And then she sang, and all was right with the world.
That's right. And I don't need to discuss face, trust me.
No, you don't. It's a true statement.
I got plenty of face from the
Okay.
more than most.
All right. So, are we ready?
Are we praying?
No, I'm not sure. Please, God, don't let me fuck this up.
And please, God, don't strike him down for saying God and fuck in the same sentence. Because he didn't really mean anything by that.
I think we're gonna probably gonna have to move over here to the table.
No, lightning bolts will probably just bend
That's
this
what I'm
whole
saying.
porch in the middle of next week.
Don't be saying bad things about Zeus. He's on a roll right now.
Oh, I heard, yeah.
That's a true statement.
Thanks, Henry. Appreciate it. Appreciate ya.
He's awake and he's bored.
A long, long time ago. Far away.
Okay.
Waiting all week to say that.
I know you have,
Mhm.
and now you have, so you got it out of your system. You feel better now?
I do.
And I'm gonna get you a thing,
I hope
So
you
you-
do get me a
so
thing.
you can make it bigger.
I would hope so.
An extender.
And extend it.
I just need it to reach a little further. That's all.
I know the
They
struggle.
still make penis bumps? I didn't know.
They do.
And
So I heard.
me too.
In
I read the
stereo.
papers.
Nice. In stereo. Okay. Oh my. You know, we can change that next.
Can we edit that out?
No.
Damn it.
That's staying.
It's like that scene from, I think it was one of the airplane movies, where it's from 2 because they're talking about the passenger that's impotent.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he's on his way to a clinic. It's like, oh, the whatever it is clinic. Oh, you know it, and they all go, we're familiar with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's gonna go when the music stops at the end. That's what's gonna hit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, they do. You still make penis bumps? Yes,
Yes,
they do. That's gonna be the end of that bit.
I have 5. No, not really. No.
Oh, those were jokes.
Yeah. that was- as far as you know. Okay. Well, I'm ready when you are. Feeling very white. More so than usual.
You're pretty flat, right? Yeah.
I am pretty flat for a white guy.
Welcome to a special edition of Blowing Smoke and Sunshine podcast. Today we are here. We have the Bad Mans. We have our special guest, our podcast mom, sitting in with us. I'm your corporate slut, Stephanie. And our host today, Brother Q, is going to be discussing his military events, shall we say, and he will be discussing a story in particular of the water taxi accident that happened in Baltimore. He was there, and you will be hearing his story today. And just for the record, I need to make sure that everyone knows this. This is all my fault. I asked him to do this. So, if this goes very well, yay me. If it doesn't, just send your complaint to yes. Yes.
Damn, Stephanie.
I know. So, without further ado, I will introduce you to our host, Brother King.
Good evening. On our last dry run, I touched on some aspects of my history, in particular the military service. And there's one event in particular that had a very profound effect on me. And I have not told this story publicly before. And Steph felt that it was the right thing to do and that now was the time. And we're going to post the video either today or tomorrow. but the audio portion of it will be uploaded to iTunes in March for the anniversary. And this may or may not change people's opinion of me. If it does, so be it. If it doesn't, that's fine too. Everybody's got their own private hell, and this is mine. But before we get there, I'm going to take you back to kind of give you the background of how all of this came about, to give you a better perspective, if you will. So, as I had stated before, I enlisted in the Navy when I was in high school, served on active duty on an aircraft carrier called the USS Independence from 1988 to 1992. I was part of the first Gulf War, including Operation Desert Shield. We were the first Navy ship battle group on station after Iraq invaded Kuwait. And so I finished my time on active duty, and I returned to civilian life, and kind of drifted aimlessly for a few years, because I hadn't really found my way yet. And through, I guess you could call it luck, being in the right place at the right time, I luck boxed into what became my career, the heating and air conditioning field. And that came about because I'd gotten married, and I was working in a dead-end job, and really had no prospects of advancing. I didn't really know what I was going to do with myself. And I was at home one day, on a day off, and a guy came out to service the furnace. And we got to chit-chatting, and I'm not sure how the conversation ended up winding its way to that place, but he basically said, well, you know, if you're looking to make a change, you know, we're hiring. And I said, well, you know, I had done an apprenticeship one summer when I was a kid with an HVAC mechanic. Didn't really amount to much, because at the time I wasn't really interested. Wasn't really interested in much of anything, to be honest with you, except radio, of course. But one thing led to another, and they hired me right off the street. And not being naturally mechanically inclined, I had no idea what was going to happen. I mean, I didn't know one end of a screwdriver from another. But here I am 18 years later, and it's been good to me. It's allowed me to support my daughter, and I can't complain. I've been very blessed as far as that goes. So, fast forward to September 11th, 2001. I was working for a company called Primary Multicraft, which doesn't exist anymore, and I was on my way to a service call in Bethesda. For those of you who are not local, Bethesda is a suburb of Washington, D.C., and I had just left the shop, and I was on my way to the service call, and I was listening to the 98 Rock Morning Show, which is a radio station out of Baltimore, rock station, legendary. The morning show at the time was Kirk, Mark, and Lopez, who for well over a decade were pretty much an institution in that town. And Lopez made the announcement that there had been what he called a horrible accident, and a plane had crashed into one of the towers in the World Trade Center in New York City. And like everybody else, I was stunned. You know, wow, this is awful. And so I was glued. And then a few minutes later, when the second plane crashed into the other tower, the tone changed dramatically, as you can imagine, because at that point it became clear that this was not an accident, that there was something bigger going on. And that's when time pretty much started to stand still. Then the plane crashed into the Pentagon. And suddenly it was like I was in a movie. Traffic started to slow down. People were rolling their windows down and talking to each other. Police cars, emergency vehicles were everywhere. Military aircraft were filling the skies. And everything started to basically get locked down. And nobody knew what was going on. And I continued to slowly make my way to Bethesda. And I finally arrived at the lady's house. It was a townhouse right off of Bradley Boulevard. And she opened the door and she said, "If you had not been American, I would not have opened the door." And I was really taken aback by that. Because it's one of those things where, how do you react to that? How do you respond? What do you say? And I was, of course, professional and courteous to her. And before I actually did anything, she literally took me by my forearm and dragged me into the living room and said, "Look." And I squatted down and we were watching the live feed from New York City. And she and I together watched those towers fall. And it got real. And all I could think is, my God, what the hell is going on? In our country, in our time, how could this happen? And we started kind of just bantering back and forth, and finally I said, okay, I have to do what I came here to do. And then I will get out of your way as quickly as I can. And I finished doing what I had to do. It was just a maintenance checkup, nothing major. And I packed my stuff up, and she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, "Please be careful. And when you get home, if you have children, hug them." And I said, "I will." And as I was leaving, my boss called and he said, "Everything is canceled for the rest of the day. Get home, get off the road. Do whatever it is you have to do. Just be careful and keep in touch and call me when you walk in your front door." And on the way home, I was thinking about what she had said. And my knee-jerk reaction to it was to kind of be appalled. And I guess to give it more perspective, again, for those of you who are not local, the people who live in Bethesda have a predominantly liberal mindset. So to hear that come from someone who lives in an area like that, it wasn't hate and it wasn't bigotry, it was fear. And there's something about panic that has a way of reducing us to the lowest common denominator. It's that fight or flight mentality. And I knew what I had to do. And so I got home and I called Don, my boss, and I told him I was home safe. And he said, okay, thank you for letting me know. And I watched the news for a while longer with the woman that I was living with at the time. And I don't remember how long we watched, but of course they were going back and forth between New York City and the Pentagon, and then in between then and when I had left Bethesda, United Flight 93 crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And of course we didn't know we didn't have all the information at that point that we do now. So nobody really knew what had happened out there. But things were starting to filter in, and of course there's a lot of rumor, there's a lot of innuendo, and everything gets very confused. And of course, when that happens, the news media gets rolling, and I don't think we didn't have anything in the way of social media at the time. So there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't MySpace, there wasn't Twitter, there wasn't any of that stuff. You just had the internet trolls. And of course, you know, need I say more? But when I finally had enough of watching the news, I went online and I found the number for the Navy recruiter. And I called them. And I gave them my name, my rate and my rank, service number, which is your social security number. And I said, I want in. I want back in. Now. No arguments, no pass go, no collect $200. I want in. Now. And he said, okay, slow down. And we got to, he started asking me questions, and he was going through my personnel file, which is, at that point, you know, they can just pull it up on the computer, not like when I was in where you actually had to physically go and pull a file out and look through it. He just pulled everything up online, and there everything was. And he said, well, here's the problem. Because you've been out for almost 10 years, you will have to go back to boot camp and start over from square one. And that's kind of where I said, no, I'm not doing that. You know, I want to serve my country, but I'm not crazy. I did my time as a grunt. I'm not doing that again. I'm too old for that shit.
All right.
So he said, well, I think what the best thing for you to do, if you want to keep your rank, which I don't blame you, and I want to get you where you want to be. And trust me, you're not the only one. Shocker. There were a whole lot of us. I mean, he said that their switchboards basically exploded. And
Everybody did.
With people just like me, who'd been out for however many years and said, okay. Because the bottom line, at least for me, and I'm going to assume it was the same mentality for everybody else, is that my brothers and sisters were going to be going over there and getting shot at. And I knew that, and I was going to be sitting at home watching it on TV, and I couldn't live with that. So he said, well, I think the thing for you to do is to join the reserves. I mean, I was ready to go active. I was ready to leave it all behind, my career, my family, everything. But thankfully, unlike most recruiters, he had enough sense to say, okay, well, I want to get you in, but I want to do what's right for you too. And I have a lot of respect for him for that. Because that's not the way it usually works. You know, whatever they have to do to get you to sign your name on the dotted line, they'll tell you any kind of fish story they can come up with.
And pick you up at 3 a.m.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did that too.
Mm-hmm.
So he gave me the number for the reserves recruiter, and I called the guy, you know, right on the spot. Same drill. Pull up my name, you know, my rank, you know, my personnel file, my history, all of that stuff. And he said, okay, you know, I want to get you in here, But here's the problem. Yeah, that's twice that I heard that statement in one night. He said, I don't have any need for AZs, which, for matter of review, call back to last week, is an acronym for Aviation Maintenance Administration, which was the job I did when I was on active duty. And because career-wise, not only Navy-wise, but in civilian, transitioning to civilian life, it was a bad move. The only thing I got out of it is that I learned to type pretty damn well, and I learned to use WordPerfect. Beyond that, it served me not at all. So I said, well, good, because I don't want to do that anymore. What else do you have? And that's when he asked me, well, what do you do for a living now? And I said, heating and air conditioning. And being a recruiter, of course, he had that voice that can convince you of anything.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
What you need is an Edsel. Yeah, man, I could really use an Edsel. So he said, I've got a job for you. How would you feel about being a CB? Oh, I know what they do. Sign me up. I'm there. I'm so there. I get to shoot guns and build shit and wear camouflage, and I don't have to go to sea. Where do I sign? And you notice I decided not to wear the camouflage tonight. I didn't want to overdo it.
On behalf of the entire staff, I think that was a good idea.
I appreciate that.
No. I disagree.
There will be plenty of other days for me to wear my camouflage. Don't you worry.
Your eyes twitching, Steph.
Yeah, don't.
Sorry.
I don't know if that's the only thing that's twitching.
We can only hope.
You blended in with the tree.
That's right. You're blending with trees.
That's right.
So we went through the whole process. Got me signed up. Went back to the MEP station. Did the whole bit where you walk around in your underwear in a building that they keep at about 40 degrees for 13 hours. Ugh, it was awful. Ding! Yeah.
Like diamonds.
Yeah. You know, your balls are climbing up inside of your intestines, just trying to find warmth.
Please, I'm so cold.
You know, your skin's turning purple. You got goosebumps the size of Volkswagens. You're just like, kill me now. So, got all that done. Everything's good. Did my oath. Then I called Podcast Mom, and she said, "Hey, how did it go?" Like, I'm back, baby. Yes. And I was assigned to Navy Mobile Construction Battalion 23, which is a very large battalion in the Mid-Atlantic region. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, the Seabees, unlike the rest of the Navy, are set up like the Army and Marines. Whereas the Navy, you have your companies, and you have your shore duty people, and then you have your sea duty people. Whereas, the other, at least the Army and Marines, I can't speak for the Air Force, you've got battalions and divisions and all of that sort of thing. Same exact thing. And there are parts of NMCB 23 spread out all over the place. Pennsylvania, Delaware, West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Maryland. And the part that I was in operated, I assume it still does, it's been a hot minute since I've been there, at Fort Belvoir in Alexandria, Virginia, over in the corner by the Army Corps of Engineers. That's where they stuck us. Sorry about that. Don't touch it. And, of course, everything being fed through the Baltimore Reserve Center, which is the first place I checked in. You do your thing. I'm here. Reporting is directed. Blah blah blah. Here's your file. Okay, report to Fort Belvoir at such and such a day, such and such a time. You're going to talk to this guy and the whole bit. So, started going there first weekend of the month. and I was a utilityman. And what a utilityman does basically is plumbing and HVAC, but it's more plumbing when you're out in the field. Now, when you're just operating, peacetime, if you will, then you have more flexibility, and then you're going to get into other things. But, they put all of these people together, and you've got heavy equipment operators, and you've got steel workers, and you've got the utility men, and on and on and on and on. And in addition to doing your regular job, of course, you would do actual combat training, which is really cool. And because I was one of 3 guys in the whole unit who knew anything about HVAC, all the other utility men were all plumbers. And there was one guy who worked at a nuclear power plant.
Oh, wow.
So, because of that fact, I was put in a position of being a trainer. And for the first time, I was training guys on how to work on HVAC equipment. And it was a really great experience. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Although it wasn't something that I had ever done before. I'd never been a trainer. I'd always been the trainee. I was this. I worked my way up like Rob did, from the step and fetch it guy to being the technician, but I'd never actually been put in a position of training people. So at any given time throughout the weekend, I'd have 3 or 4 guys crowded around me, and I'm teaching them refrigerant theory and how to work on furnaces, which were all propane, which is terrific because the Army Corps of Engineers consistently forgot to refill the propane tank. So you'd go out there when it's 1,000,000 degrees below zero and you have no heat anywhere, and they're all coming to us going, "Fix it!" I can't. Why can't you fix it? There's no gas. It's all bye-byes.
That's a little nice.
All right, and then so they got to call the guy, and the guy comes over in the truck, and he refills the tanks, and you turn everything back on, and lo and behold, you have gas pressure, and everybody's happy again. So that's what I did for 2.5 years. I had my first near-death experience, one of my drill weekends. Well, my first, it's not like I've had a whole lot, but I was on my way down, tooling down the BW Parkway in my Dodge Dakota, and it was raining lightly, just enough to really screw everything up. And I hit a slick spot, and the back of the truck started to fishtail. And I grabbed on the wheel and tried to straighten it out, and there was nothing doing. And I started to spin, and I hit a tree so hard that my truck literally bounced off of it. And I spun out again, and I slid sideways for a couple 100 yards, I think. And it's a peculiar feeling looking out your front window into a ravine. And you know that there is nothing you can do. And I literally just held on to the steering wheel. And I remember saying out loud, "Oh God, this is it." And I literally just waited to die. Because I was just waiting for that truck to go down into that ravine. And somehow or other, it spun again. I took out a construction road sign and ended up in the median strip facing the same direction that I was heading to begin with. And sat there for a couple of minutes, and I hopped out, and I kind of did one of these deals where you kind of go, "Okay,
Make sure I have everything."
everything's here,
Testicles, testicles.
everything's good." And the guy who was in the car behind me, probably, I don't know, at least 10 or 11 car lengths at least, pulled up beside me, and I'll never forget it because he was as white as a ghost. And he looked at me and he did one of these and was like, how did you survive that? I said, I don't know. He said, if you had seen what I just saw, there's no way that I'm standing here talking to you right now. You should be dead. I'm here. Not a scratch on me. Cop pulls up, looks at my trail of destruction. Called the tow truck. Of course, I called podcast mom. Mommy,
I messed up. I had the boo-boos.
I had the boo-boos. So they come pulling up. The tow truck comes pulling up, and I got people crowded around me. I even had an officer, an Air Force officer, who was on her way. I don't know where she was going. She pulls up, and of course I snapped the salute, and she said, "Really? Stop." But man, I was like, "Stop." Okay, sorry. And the cop said to me, "My friend, I am not a religious man, but when you get to where you're going, you need to say a prayer because somebody was looking out for you today." And the reason that I tell that story is because it occurred to me after the fact, based upon what happened, what I saw, that the damage that I had caused, you're talking to a dead man. You are looking at a dead man. There is no way I should have survived that accident. And what that told me is that I have more to do. This was not my time. And of course, that was a fun phone call when I had to call my superior down at Fort Belvoir. Like, "Yeah, I'm not going to make it. Yeah, they're taking my vehicle home in little pieces." So at some point, I don't remember, I think it was 2003, we did a 2-week stint at Camp Lejeune, South Carolina, where we were doing combat training with the Marines. And it rained all 2 weeks. And I mean, it was like biblical rain. I mean, you were literally just waiting for a big wooden boat with 2 of every animal to float by. It was a nightmare. It was cold, it was wet, it was miserable. But we had a good time. It was a great experience. And of course, we did the combat exercises at the end. And I had been assigned, because I was part of it when I was on the ship, I got assigned as the team leader for the CBR defense team. CBR stands for Chemical, Biological, Radiological. And so the theory is that if you're out there on the boat and you're attacked with a CBR weapon of some sort, call it a nuke, whether it's a nuke or biological or whatever it is, it's your job to go out there and be the first and last line of defense to keep the ship afloat. Which basically means that your life expectancy is about 15 minutes. So when they went through my personnel file and they said, "Oh, you were on the CBR defense team when you were on active duty, guess what you get to do?" Not only did I have to be on the team, but I got to be the team leader. Yay me! God damn it! But what do you...
Now I understand why you're going.
Yes, that's exactly why. So, what are you going to do?
No stress there.
So we did all the exercises, and we did actual combat exercises with the Marines, who were hiding out in the woods. And we could see them out there with their night vision goggles, and they're doing their little clicking, to each other. And I don't know how they did it. They were out there for hours, just sitting there waiting. And then all at once, they descended on us. And it was mayhem and good times had by all. And after they killed us all, I had to be resurrected because they killed me. They shot me right in the head. And what they did is they had these infrared things on their weapons and blanks in the gun, so you saw the muzzle flash, but if the weapon turned on you and made contact with these sensors that you had, then a red light would go off and it would go beep, and you were dead. Well, I was supposed to be over with my CPR team, and I never made it because I got shot in the head.
That sucks.
So I had to be resurrected. So they had these guys who wore,
Jesus Christ.
I am the Son of God. I told you that.
The day that the dead live.
Lazarus.
That's right. Lazarus, comes, arise and go forth. So they had these guys who wore the white helmets. They were the instructors, and you had to call them, white hat. I gotta go over there. I gotta go over there. And I was the grenadier for my company. And the picture that I have on my Facebook page that all the ladies seem to like so much is me holding my rifle, which is an M203, which is, for all intents and purposes, it's an M16 fitted with a grenade launcher. I love it when she does that.
I love it when she does that too.
And it's really cool, but the only problem is it's heavy as hell, and you had to take that thing with you everywhere you went. Even when,
I'd have helped you.
I know you would have. Even when you went out to the latrine to do God's work,
Right.
you had to take the
That's
gun
God's
with you.
work,
That's
huh?
right.
You had to give back what God had given you.
That's right.
God's lead.
That's right.
MREs for everybody, it was grand.
Oh! Yikes.
So we finished with that, came home, all was well, and I was sent on loan to the Baltimore Reserve Center to be part of the facilities crew. And what are you doing?
It's not screwed in. That's why it keeps...
Oh, that's gonna sound terrific.
Sorry. Just saying.
Stop futzing with it.
Well, it was wiggle jiggle.
She's gonna futz with hers. I'm gonna futz with mine too.
Stop it!
It looks like
Are we gonna run out of time on that thing?
Should be okay.
Just checking.
you took everything off of it, right?
Except for last week's.
What did we run last week?
I don't know. We should be alright.
Okay.
Just every once in a while check on it.
Like now?
Well, I can see it from here. Just make sure it's still recording. So I was... Go ahead.
Little wait.
No, I'm going to keep talking.
That Henry's gonna keep talking.
So I was sent on loan to the Baltimore Reserve Center to be part of the facilities crew there. And what you did was basically a bunch of make-work projects that they had, that you were doing, building retrofits. I think we installed a split system air conditioner. I got a Navy Achievement Medal that I didn't earn. We were installing handrails up on the roof, and they had already fabricated this stuff and put everything together and all of that by the time I got there. So when my first day there, all I did was help them set it in place. And in front of everybody, the commanding officer of the Reserve Center handed me a Navy Achievement Medal that I didn't earn. And I still have it. And I don't claim it because I didn't earn it. I don't feel like I deserved it. It doesn't belong to me. But
one went for the whole team.
no,
Oh, it was
everybody got one.
right.
But I didn't, I wasn't there. There was no reason that I should have been given that medal. but the CL gave it to me. What was I going to do
What was actually the medals, what were the medals given for?
for that project?
Just for that project?
Yes,
Which you just came in, Johnny,
At-
like,
at-
ready money quarterback, like.
exactly, right.
Because that's what you were assigned to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he came in on the tail of the project, but the way that the military works, it's like a collective. If one does well, all does well. One screws up, you're all screwed. Everybody gets in trouble. So that's usually a lot of times what happens.
But it also causes resentment among your shipmates.
Yes.
Because you didn't earn it.
Right.
And they were right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it caused some issues for a while. But I guess we got past that, and you know, it's business as usual. Every month, go up, do my thing.
You're out of Quantico,
No, the Baltimore Reserve Center.
the Baltimore Reserve Center, but didn't you do?
We did M16 qualifications at Quantico.
Oh, okay.
That was a one-day thing.
Oh, okay.
And you'll be happy to know that at best, I'm a medium shot. Kneeling and prone, I shoot just fine. Standing, I can't hit the broadside of a barn.
Oh.
It's really bad. It's really pathetic. Matter of fact, my daughter Jackie did gun qualifications with this thing called the Johnny Appleseed Project at, where was it? I want to say it was Fort Meade where they did it. And she's a better shot than I am.
Actually, for the most part, statistically, from what I understand, women are a better shot.
Well, that's good to know. Note to self.
Yeah. No, and that's true.
So, yeah, so we only did a one-day thing at Quantico. That was a one-offer. March 6th, 2004. It was a glorious day. It was a day kind of like today was. It was warm, not hot, but it was warm. Not a cloud in the sky. And I remember driving up the road toward Baltimore, the window down, the music blasting, just enjoying. It was one of those moments, you know, where you just like, it's a good day to be alive. Arrived at the Reserve Center. Yeah, again, business as usual. I don't remember, not surprised I don't, but I don't remember what else we had done that day. Just typical, you know, make-work projects. And we're winding down for the day. You knocked off at 4 o'clock, and it was probably about 10 minutes to 4 maybe. People are milling around. I was sitting in our office just thumbing through a Navy magazine called All Hands, which is a monthly periodical. Just kind of flipping through, you know, and I remember looking out the window, and there were power lines, 3 of them, that crossed directly in front of that window at an angle. And suddenly they started to gyrate wildly. And that caught my attention. And then, out of the northwest, literally out of nowhere, the blackest, nastiest, most hateful storm cloud I had ever seen rolled right past the window. And that's how I described it later. And that is a quote that will live in infamy. If you Google my name, using my first name, Henry Zecker, you're going to find 2 things. One, you're going to find a link to my father's biography of William Gillette. Two, somewhere in those results, you're going to see, quote, "It was hateful." Because that was the only word that I could come up with to describe the storm cloud. And it went everywhere. That one quote went round the web. It's actually kind of embarrassing when you think about it. That's the best I could come up with.
If I'm gonna be quoted.
Yeah, it's got to be that. It was hateful. So the storm cloud rolls in, and I heard some kind of commotion out in the hallway. And one of the guys comes running in and he goes, "Come on, Zecker, let's go." Like, well, what happened? And he said, "A water taxi just flipped over." Holy shit. So, you grab your hat, grab your stuff, and we took off down to the pier. And what had happened was, right as that storm came in, this water taxi, the Lady D, was pulling away from the pier across the harbor from where we were. Now, to give you some perspective, the Baltimore Reserve Center sits directly next to Fort McHenry. I mean, it's right next to it. You can walk out of the front door of the Reserve Center, pick up a rock, and hit the wall at Fort McHenry. I don't recommend you do that, but you could if you wanted to. So they had pulled away, and right as that storm hit and the wind gust picked up, the pilot of the boat tried to turn to go back to the pier, and right as he made the second turn, the wind caught him at just the right angle, and the boat capsized. So we head down to the pier, and some people started making up a makeshift triage on the pier. The rest of us all got onto this boat. It's called an LCM-8, which is the same type of boat that carried our troops to the beach at Normandy. It's the same one. So if you've ever seen Saving Private Ryan, you know what that boat looks like. And we start heading out into the harbor toward the capsized boat. As we got closer, we could see people in the water. People were climbing up on top of the boat, waving their arms at us, yelling at us. And the closer we got, of course, the better we could hear them. And I remember thinking to myself, my God, what the hell happened out here? So we got about 10 feet from them. And since the water taxi was upended in the water, the outboard motor was sticking up. So we tossed them a rope, and what we were trying to get them to do was tie the rope around the motor so that we could pull them to us. And it was myself and about 3 or 4 other guys that were trying to get this point across to them, and none of them seemed to really grasp what we were trying to tell them, but of course they were panicking. So we kind of had to explain in mime what we wanted them to do, and eventually somebody figured it out, and they tied the rope around, and we started pulling them to us. And the guy who was driving our boat, Senior Chief Scardina, lowered the gate on the front of the boat, and as he did, the 43-degree water came up onto the boat, up to about our knees. And it was like 1,000 knives stabbing you all at the same time. I had never felt anything that cold. And as we were pulling them toward us, they were screaming at us. You know, please help us. You know, there are people underneath. There are people underneath. There are people underneath. And then guys started diving into the water. And I hesitated, and I took a step back. And they were, you know, the guys were trying to kick the windows out and trying to get, you know, grab onto people.